we have our current Commodore and Staff Commodore Dave Fernandez giving us a report on a Croatian cruise. That should be exciting. And in April, maybe the Opties, we might have to reschedule that. But anyway, we've got a whole lineup. Put this on your calendar, first Friday of each month. Without any further ado, I just want to say that when you embark on a race, whether it's up and down the Marina del Rey Channel or out to Malibu and back, that a lot of guys here will be doing tomorrow, over to Catalina, or maybe heading for Hawaii. One of the fun things, or not so fun things about sailing is you start heading in a direction into the unknown, into the unanticipated. And what we're going to be hearing about tonight is Jerome's story about his race to Hawaii last year, where an unanticipated event happened and how he dealt with it and how it evolved. So without stealing any thunder, we're really glad to have Jerome speak tonight. He's been a member here at South Coast Corinthian for a very long time, a personal friend at PSSA for even longer. Jerome Sammarcelli.
Thank you. Thank you, Rod. Thank you everyone for being here. Not a lot of organization into that presentation, and looking back, it was already, this happened in June, and I figured every yacht club is going to invite me to talk about this, and nothing happened. So my memory just drifted away, like let's move on, and my fingers still work. So I've got a joke for you, so say stop anytime. Anybody? Oh, you lost. My kids love it, so it works. It's not a drama, I got really lucky, but the bottom line is I had a last visit to the finger doctor this weekend. She said there's nothing more to do with, so I'm okay.
Austin's on.
Anyways, are they on?
Austin is on.
Okay, so we're really lucky, and it's great because it's not just about my finger, it's a lot more than this as far as I'm concerned. Like Rod said, we've done a lot of racing offshore, and I feel like I'm very prepared for every offshore racing that I attempt. This one was 24 hours long, not even, and it was very unfortunate. The guy who was with me should join us online as well. He lives in Hawaii. Nobody knows him, but he's a really good sailor. He's not one of those racers who trim and do all this kind of things, right? But thanks to him, I'm here with all my fingers. He reacted really well to the situation, and I think we were very well prepared, and that's one of the things I'd like to share with you today. It could have been a lot worse. I was really lucky in the sense that we were really close to shore, which is, think about less than 300 miles for sure, probably around San Nicolas. So I'll show a map, but yeah, maybe 250. And we've been there before, like PSSA have those races all the time. Within helicopter range, within VHF range, and we've done a couple of things to make sure that I was not gonna bleed to death, just to be a bit dramatic. Ben, my crew, will hopefully join from Hawaii.
He's on.
He's on? Great. Austin, who is one of the Coast Guard who was in the helicopter, there were 4 of them. One guy who dove into the water. Austin was handling the crane to bring me up and down, or mostly up. And then there's obviously 2 pilots. So their input is going to be great for any of us going offshore, because their view of the story is very different than mine, obviously. And I was actually talking to Ben not so long ago again, and he's like, no, this is a different story. What are you talking about? He's like, no, you were in shock. You don't remember this and that. And so, but let's start with a couple of things. For those of you who don't know me, I work on boats, so I take pride of getting boats ready, right? Really quickly, this boat, where is it? Alright, let's take a photo here. This is a 32-foot boat out of carbon fiber. It's fun. It's really fast at certain point of sail, and that's during the start actually. So we are heading out upwind that day, and you see in the back of the boat here, and it's right here. This is the device that my finger got snapped into. Yeah, piece of shit. Because I would have never thought. I've used this thing for 10 years. It's actually great. It's one way to recharge your batteries. Most people, when they go offshore, they charge their batteries through their engine, which I can do as well. You also use solar panel. You can use fuel cell systems, and then the hydro generator is one of those systems that actually is very low drag. You don't need to carry any fuel. You can go around the globe, and as long as you move, you power up. You basically create AC power that's converted into DC and charged into your battery. At 10 knots, I can get about 40 amp hour. Wow. I mean, that's really good. And we were just a day out. The boat got a couple of lithium batteries. There's no reason to charge, and it's gnarly. I mean, I'm about to vomit inside the boat. It was pretty brutal. And for some reason, I said we have to recharge the battery. They're like, no, why are you doing this? But so I put the hydro down. So I'm skipping some steps, but I put the hydro down, and it broke. Physically, there's a line that broke. So, and again, it's the pivot. Yeah. So I'm gonna show how it works. But basically, right now it's up, and it's like a beach cat rudder. You know how you pivot the thing down, so the prop is here, and it just pivots down, and now it's in the water, and the prop turns, and as it turns, it creates AC current. So I took it out of its bracket, so it's here. You don't need the mic, right? No. Okay, good. All right. And then I'm starting to fix it. So I tell Ben, he's the main sheet. I'm gonna fix this thing because it's only, it's only 30 pounds. So how does it go again? So this is when it's attached to the transom here, right? So then that's when it's running. So when you're not using it, don't want to get killed again. It's like this, okay? And I mean, you can carry this. See, it's heavy, right? And it's bottom heavy. It's heavy here, okay? Because that's where the motor is. So, long story short is the line here broke. Okay, I'm still dealing with the manufacturer. And look, and I've never told to anybody that it was made by Wattensi. You're the first one to know. Which is made in La Rochelle. It's a great brand. They're the first one who came with this. There's nothing wrong with this. Okay, it's my fault. But this device is 10 years old and things break. That's how I make a living. You fix your shit, right? So, but it broke, and I tried to fix it. And when I put it back in place, instead of staying here like it should, it just slammed down. And this is really heavy. So, and then what happened is, I'm going to use a different finger. Although. So, this side got busted in between the two joints on my middle finger, and it got wedged here. Yeah, and that really hurts. There's a lot of uncomfortable things. So there's basically this 1/4-inch cassette here that went through my finger, and if anybody is in medical field, they probably understand better than me, but everything got crushed, which is a good thing because nothing got cut. So if you cut a nerve, the surgeon is going to say, well, we're going to reattach it, but there's no guarantee. So she's a beautiful woman, doctor, she'd bring her hair, like, do you see this hair puff? And like, well, that's your nerve. So we're going to reattach it, but it doesn't mean it's going to work again. Great. But that wasn't the case. It was just crushed. So the tendon got crushed. The bone was okay. The nerve got crushed, but we didn't know. And the bottom line is it started to work again, and it's perfect. Wow. So we got it. But So that's how it happened, and it doesn't take away anything from this device. It was my mistake.
Jerome, question. That reminds me a lot like a guillotine.
Oh yeah, well it's French, so. But yeah, it's no, it's. But look, I mean, the mistake came when I said let's recharge the batteries, because we had 3 ways of charging the batteries, and solar and hydro and the engine. We could have run the engine for what it's worth. And this boat doesn't even drag the prop when you actually use the engine, because the prop recesses into the hull. So, it was just stupid. I don't think, I was thinking clearly. Ben didn't know the boat as well, so he didn't discourage me of doing anything. And it happened so quickly that when he said, "Are you okay?" I said, "No, we're done," because for 5 minutes I was just staring at my bone. And I've never been so scared, honestly. But then this is when I want to jump in with Ben and Austin, because this is when I just blurred out. And I was starting to cry. I want to go home. What am I doing here? This is stupid. So, why don't we? And I'll jump in again for more humor. But why don't we start with? I think we should start with Ben. Can they hear me?
Yes.
Guys, are you there? Okay, so the sound's coming from my computer.
I see someone.
The video's on.
There's someone.
Turn your volume
There
up.
he is, Ben.
It's Ben.
Can you turn your
Oh,
volume
he's
up?
on mute.
So my volume is
Yeah, tell him
low.
he's on mute.
He's
Tell
on
him.
mute.
Yep.
Tell him it's on you.
You have to.
You're muted, Ben.
We can't hear you.
Take it off mute.
No.
He's not on mute.
Say something.
No.
I can hear them on my computer.
He's still muted.
He's still muted.
No, how do you know?
Is it coming through the TV speaker?
You can send him a text.
Oh, that's a good point.
You have to permission.
You might be muting him on your side.
Yeah.
Ask him to say something. Ask him to say something.
Ben, can you speak?
Um,
So it's barely coming out of my computer. Is it?
do you want to mute yours and I'll unmute mine?
You have to sometimes.
Well, I'm muted.
get permission.
Yeah, good call.
I'm muted.
Hey, Ben.
Hey.
All right.
There you go.
For training computers, Jerome?
Well,
Yeah,
I'll just keep it here.
That's what she. Do
Ben,
Put it by the
you
mic.
want to put it by the mic?
Yeah.
I don't want to move this thing. It's gonna be.
Yeah, no, you can move it. You can move it.
You guys can hear all right?
Yay.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, guys. Wish I could be there.
Liar.
He was there.
You give me his computer.
Jerome, is it all good?
Yeah, go ahead. I think they can hear you.
Wait, where did you leave off? Oh shit, I see my bone for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, turning back and seeing that was a shocker for me too. It was so weird. I don't even really know where to start with what you guys want to know, but I guess the main thing was making the decision to go back. I think there was even a moment where we asked, what do we do? Do we go back? I don't even know how that was the question for a second, but then it was very quickly yes, and let's report it. And I think the first thing that we decided to do was put out a call to the Coast Guard, or I think we issued a mayday, given the fact that I didn't know how to assess the situation. I figured I'd rather go all the way up and then de-escalate downwards. I don't know if that was the right call, but I think so. Pretty quickly, one of the boats from our fleet responded and said they heard us. There was a bit of a lag time between actually getting in touch with the Coast Guard, which was interesting. I guess that was based where we were, VHF, all that. And I wound up talking to a nearby cargo ship that helped out, I think, and relayed it. And then eventually I heard back from the Coast Guard. yeah, it was the first thing was that, and then actually I kind of missed a step. I think the first thing was getting Jerome situated in a decent spot, stopping the bleeding, putting a compression around his finger, and trying to stabilize and see where he was at, because that was the first thing really. I have done some training stuff in the past. Safety at sea was something I did obviously for this, but then a more extensive training for commercial certificate that I have. And a big thing is shock. That was kind of what I was most scared of, because I think it's more likely to happen when you're really tired and fatigued like we both were, and it probably could even happen to me given in that situation. So I just wanted to make sure we got everything kind of settled, and then went to the communication and kind of went from there really. Wound up being really useful and necessary to have the sat phone. I had one of the older ones along, and that wound up being what I communicated directly with the Coast Guard with to organize everything, because it was really hard to have good VHF communications that was really understandable, and especially the back and forth. VHF is great, but it's also pretty hard to go into detail, especially in a stressful situation like that, in comparison to what we're used to, you know. So I think that was the major thing, really. I look back on it, there's so much to say about it, and I guess questions that maybe anybody has, I don't really know what to say other than I think evaluating everything when you're fatigued is harder to do than people imagine, and I think that that's the biggest takeaway for me is really having strong procedures in place that are easy to follow when you're fatigued in a situation like that was crucial. I think everybody can always do it better. We could have done it better. Probably we might have avoided it. I don't know. I really don't know. It's just a bad luck accident. So for me, that was the big thing. And just never having dealt with a helicopter rescue was huge too. There's so much to say about that in its own right. I feel like you can talk about it in theory all that you want, and then being out there and doing it, it's there's a lot to it. I'm sure Jerome remembers a lot of the helicopter guys.
Well, Ben, so you're
Thanks to
gonna.
them so much, Austin. Like all you guys, I felt like,
Jerome,
wow,
what
this
was
poor
the
guy's
sea-
gotta
what
come
was the
deal with
sea
us
state?
clowns right now.
What was the sea state you're dealing with?
But
Ben, can you hear me?
it is what
No.
it is.
You're on mute.
Here.
Okay.
No, but
Yeah.
am I?
Use this one.
Now you're good.
Can you mute? Is it?
No, you're gonna get an echo.
What do I need to do?
Speak.
No, we're gonna need this one. Ben, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, sorry. I'm sure this is eventually gonna go back to you, like everything that happened, bit by bit. But somebody was asking about the sea state. What I remember is probably still, 6, 8, maybe a year more foot, and still
Yeah.
gusting 25 plus. I mean, we were about to vomit. I know I was. Actually, we were talking about it because I was down below around 10 a.m. to do the navigation, and I told Ben, it's like, all right, we are where we should be. Let me go outside because I'm just gonna puke. And so it was pretty. And I usually don't, right? It was pretty bad. It was a rough. We knew the first 3 days were gonna be rough, but that was part of the race. I mean, look, the boat was fine. It was not the issue. It's just. But one thing I have to say is Ben just didn't miss any steps, and I was not even expecting that. This is not why he was on the boat. I had no idea that he was gonna react so well, and if anything, I think Christy will probably chip in with her medical expertise. But if you do any offshore races, you should have somebody who has a medical background. I mean, there's no, because she will explain why in better words than I will, but you should really have somebody, because this is the worst environment to get hurt. And we'll probably go quickly, if we have time, go through what a med kit is about, because you can buy something at West Marine and this is laughable, And they have different levels. I mean, you can spend $1,000, but really none of them have a stapler. which is amazing to me. Like, you should have a stapler. This being said, there's no
Only if
reason
you
to
know how
stitch
to use
yourself.
it.
But, anyways,
Can't be that hard.
so Ben and Austin, please just, this is kind of free jumping kind of thing, but
What was the sea state, and when the accident happened, what steps did he have to take to depower the boat to get things like totally?
okay, well, let me answer that real quick, but we were already double reef main and number 4. Okay, there's no way we
Okay.
can carry more.
Water-
We're double-handed, there's
water
no,
reef.
that's all we have. All the water is on the floor. We actually had those jugs, which I'll buy a water maker next time because some of the jugs were, all over the place. Anyways, so, yeah, it was bad enough. But it was probably 10 in the morning, and when it happened, I think we turned around very quickly, and clearly what Ben was, what I remember, but you correct me if I'm wrong, what Ben was saying is like, you have to keep this bearing because the Coast Guard wants you to keep this bearing so they can dump the diver in such a way that he's going to drift to you. And look, Austin, you can tell me what you saw from the helicopter, but when your friend jumped, and Ben tell me, but he's never gonna swim to us. Like, there's no way. So we tacked, and we went to him, and we picked him up. And I don't remember his name, but the guy's like, good job, work. And then, he's like 6'5", and like, no, you're good job.
So Jerome, just so that I understand this, you've got 25 knots of wind,
Right.
you've still got a fair amount of mainsail and a number 4, and you came up and did a tack.
Right.
Your boat's moving along at least 5 or 6 knots.
Yeah, we're moving.
Yeah, we were flogging pretty hard.
Yeah.
I mean, like we were trying to hold what the Coast Guard had set us as a course, which involved being pretty tight on the wind. I'm pretty sure I remember being on a port tack on what they had originally set us, and the tack Jerome was saying we had to kind of come around and come onto starboard, and then he came up from the starboard side, I think, on the boat, which was windward of us. We pretty much came up from underneath him in the end. But yeah, it was hard to keep the boat in control given the sea state and not to be corking around. So I think that like having a bit of sail helped, but it also was, the sails definitely took a bit of a flogging.
So
So-
when we
yeah.
ask you guys, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Hi, I'm Austin. I was the flight mechanic on board. Well, sorry, just a little bit about myself real quick. I've been in the Coast Guard for about 13 years. I've been stationed all over the country. And most of my experience as a flight mechanic comes from when I was stationed in Alaska, which had some pretty intense conditions, just like the day that we were out there. It's nice to finally meet you, Ben, as well. So thanks
Nice to meet you.
for holding it down
for what you do.
Yeah, thanks for holding it down while we were doing the thing. But just a quick note on the heading that we asked you guys to hold. So we basically, when we ask you to hold a heading, that's so that we can have our nose of the helicopter pointed into the wind. And that is for our own fly-out capabilities. So if we were to lose an engine, basically like it takes several seconds for the other engine to be able to ramp up its power to be able to then support the weight and put out the required amount of torque to be able to then fly out of of a hover, basically. So we can't hover on one engine alone. So we need both of them working at a pretty high power output. So if we're pointing into the wind, that is a huge help for us, especially when it's a high wind day. If we're not pointing into the wind, we have all sorts of other issues like controllability issues, and even having to have to put in more power than we would normally to be able to control the helicopter. So if you can't do that, like especially with a sailboat, which is understandable, not being able to just point your nose in any direction that we asked you to, then tell us, and we'll work around that. So that's kind of seems like what we ended up doing.
So back to the call, just so you know, so Ben gave the call, the Mayday, and we have on the boat a communication sheet. So if you're close to shore, basically the paperwork says dial 310 blah blah blah, and you get a hold of the Coast Guard station. If you're further offshore, you go to 16, and if you're even further, there's a number you can still dial with your sat phone, and then this spreadsheet, I mean this paperwork, and I'm happy to share it, walk you through what you have to tell them. As far as the description of the boat, what's the incident, where are you? I mean, there's like a lot of detail, which is great. I don't know if Ben used all of this, but I know you must have it. I've seen it on a lot of boats who are going offshore, and it's a great document to have wherever you are. The thing that I understand is those guys, the Coast Guard, were already airborne when they heard the Mayday. And then they went to San Clemente and they landed, refilled, and went back. And Austin this is where you can tell us, but from what I understand, it's about 250 miles, that's their range out. They can hover for maybe 30 minutes, and then they have to come back. So you just, okay, let's go. So that's kind of what I was a little stressed out because, it took you, I think, maybe an hour and a half to get to us?
Yeah, something like that. We were airborne when we heard, I heard the Mayday, like I was just talking to you on the phone earlier. And I heard Sector talking to you guys. So when, but like as far as, like what to say and whether we should call or whatever, like just call. It doesn't matter. That's what our job is for. If you have any inkling, like, you feel like maybe you should call the Coast Guard, or you feel like you might be in over your head, or you feel like things might go bad or anything, it's just better to establish comms. I mean, if you guys like lose a sail and you're like, oh, well, we lost one sail, and I don't know if that happens. I'm not a sailing guy, but if something happens where you're like, man, if something else bad happens, like we're going to be in some deep trouble, just call us, reach out and establish comms, and we can put you guys on like a 30-minute, 6-hour, 12-hour what am I trying to say, arrangement. So we talk to you every 12 hours and we find out how are things going, what's going on. But yeah, please don't ever hesitate to call out, because they're going to ask you all those questions.
I'll say
and then they're going to decide whether you guys need help or not. I've heard of cases being turned down, and I've heard of cases where, you might not have thought like it was that urgent of an emergency, and we still flew on them. And there's all sorts of other things that like weather especially that will come into factor with cases. But getting back to it, we heard your case or your call, Jerome, and we heard you talking to Sector, and we actually landed. We were just doing a training mission. We're heading up the coast, and we're going to go into Camp Pendleton to do some training. And we ended up landing. There's a couple right next to the I-5. I'm sure anybody that's driven from San Diego down, or from LA down to San Diego knows, there's a couple of landing pads right on right next to the highway right there. And so we landed there, and just to conserve fuel, because we burn less when we're sitting on deck than when we're flying around. And we called Sector, and we're like, hey, where are they? Because as soon as we can get a GPS coordinates, then we can start planning whether we're going to have the fuel to get out there. So we realized, even before they had made the call of whether they wanted us to go out there to help you guys or not, we realized that we were going to have to refuel. So that's a really good thing to know, because we're then going to have to call San Clemente and have them send the Navy guys down to their airstrip to then help us do a hot fuel to refuel while the helicopter is still running. So there's all these different things that that take time to get all in order, and any more time that we have is beneficial. So don't wait until the last second to call us. It all helps. But yeah, we heard you guys. We landed, talked to Sector, flew out to San Clemente, and then and then it was another 100 miles offshore, if I remember correctly. that we had to fly to come out and get you. And as far as comms go, like I remember not really being able to hear you, Jerome, and I remember Ben. It was probably Ben on the sat phone or on the VHF radio. But I remember being able to hear some sort of was like a container ship or something talking to you guys, and then I remember hearing Sector San Diego talking to us and them telling us that they were talking to you guys on the sat phone. So, yeah.
So
Back to you
Austin,
guys.
Again, what's the range? How far can you go?
The range, so generally it's about 300 miles offshore, and then hovering for about 30 to 45 minutes, and then 300 miles back. And that obviously has to do with a bunch of different things, but we can also refuel from Navy ships. So if there's a Navy ship offshore, then, you know, we can land on them and refuel, or we can also hover and refuel from them. So, yeah, Sector might tell you to go in a different direction than what you would think would be a logical thing to do, because, you know, we might be flying to go land on some Navy frigate or aircraft carrier or something that you don't even know is 100 miles over the horizon, to then refuel and then come and get you. So they're just going to tell you to sail in whatever direction is going to get you closer to us. But yeah, about 300 miles offshore, and hovering for 30 minutes and 300 miles back. And so we have about a 6-hour endurance.
So one thing, and I probably don't remember really well, but I thought you guys asked me at some point if I was a US citizen. And I was like, yes.
You didn't say that.
Not by birth, clearly.
So Jerome, I have another.
Because everybody, because everybody was asking, well, how much did it cost you? Like, well, nothing so far.
You paid your taxes.
Hold on, that's a good point, you know.
Zero. It's zero. So I don't know if you guys have seen, but yesterday there was a rescue. There's a helicopter that called out to pick up a dog that had fallen off a cliff up in Oregon, and it was on like ABC Nightly News last night. And yeah, it's zero. Short answer is zero, but long answer is that it's all built into our operating budget. Like, and we have to, like, we have our maintenance that we have to do on our helicopters planned out for like years in advance. So there is calendar maintenance that comes due at like specific like calendar intervals, and then there's hourly maintenance that comes due at specific flight hour intervals. And they want all of that stuff to line up. So like we're already flying training flights all the time. So we can go out and fly on an actual case, like that is strictly a positive as far as, you know, and it doesn't cost anybody extra money, like that money is already spent. So yeah, nobody's gonna get a bill. The only way that you would ever get a bill is if like you were on a boat and like a Coast Guard boat had to come out and there was like a significant transfer of fuel, or if it was like some kind of like hoax or like something like that. So like, you know, in any sort of like actual emergency, it's never gonna happen. And even if we flew out there and then we realized that we weren't gonna be able to hoist you, or we hoisted the rescue swimmer down, and then they realized that we didn't need to hoist you or whatever, and it was too much of a risk or whatever, or we couldn't safely put you in the water to then be hoisted or something like that. We're still not going to charge. Like, long story short, you're not getting charged with anything. It's free. Citizenship question is like that.
No joke. It's like
nothing to do with anything.
I didn't know.
I don't know what.
Well, Austin, I didn't know. So you know, people are asking.
While we have Austin from the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Coast Guard. What about VHF range? When would you give up on trying to call back to, you know, most of us are, you know, up and down the west coast here. At what range should you give up on VHF and have to go to, you know, a sat phone or some other means of communication?
I mean, I would probably try VHF a couple of times. I mean, also if you call out with okay, to answer your question, the range, I don't know. I don't know when, like how far offshore you just wouldn't even bother. I don't know. But if you call out with a mayday, I'm pretty sure legally other vessels have to report that.
Okay.
So some cargo ship might pick you up, and then they have way more powerful radios, so they can relay back to land a lot easier. Or we might hear it, like when we're flying. Also, like, we are always monitoring emergency frequencies when we're flying. Just like everybody is monitoring channel 16. Like the Coast Guard, us flying, when we're flying, we're monitoring channel 16. So if you reach out on that, we're going to hear you. The same as how one of the sector command centers is going to hear you as well. But as far as range goes, I don't know.
Well, VHF is line of sight. Okay.
Line of sight, yeah. So
Well, it's line of sight. So you know the Earth's curves, right?
Yeah.
So hold on a second. So
About
as
20
high as you are, the further you go, right?
From
so
a boat, it's
you become a
about
big ship.
20
So
miles.
eventually, you know, you lose land you lose sight of the land. But there's a ship that can relay. That's what happened to Ben when he went to 16. There's a ship that actually relayed all communication to the Coast Guard. Okay. But then it was so bad that Ben went to Satford.
Will you ask Ben why he has his hand all crooked?
Okay, so 1 second. So Ben was surfing 2 weeks ago or yesterday, and he
Excuse
busted
me,
his
why do you
shoulder,
have that?
and then Austin got into a motorcycle accident. So those like amazing guys.
Your hand is fine.
Your hand is
You're the only one with Gilly Hills.
All right, okay, Ben, you're a good guy.
So those two guys are like 6'5", by the way.
Thank you.
So the bottom line is, if you're in an emergency, you pick up and you go to 16.
Right.
If you don't get a response, then look for others. Right?
You need, you know, we're double-handed, so being double-handed, as per Transpac rules, we both had to go to first aid and CPR training. You know, we both had to go to, what is it called, the Safety at Sea seminar, right? Because we're just double-handed. So there's quite a few things you can learn from that. I can tell you, back to me, my turn. So what's his name? The guy who jumped, the swimmer, what's his name?
Josh.
Okay, Josh, because he's got a name. So Josh jumped, we picked him up, and then he looked at me, he's like, you okay? I'm like, well, yeah. And he said, well, I know your background, you have epilepsy, so you're coming with me. And then they talked to Ben and said, do you want to come? And then Ben was like, yes, but no. I gotta
He said, so you're staying, and I was like,
So you're gonna stay and
So I'm gonna take the boat back. I'm like, okay. So you jump in the water. So Josh got this survival suit, and you could tell he's very comfortable, and he's got this gear, and I mean, but you could tell he's not cold. And I jump in the water. I got my Farleys, and it hits you. Okay, it's just it is cold, and then it's heavy because you've got all this wet gear on.
and it's the middle of summer, it's still cold.
Right. Yeah. No. And it's so. And then, look, I don't know. I mean, I've jumped in the pool at Derry Yacht Club, and it's got nothing to do with it. And then Austin brought me up, and this is where it's funny because. Josh came with a knife, which is about this big, and I'm deflating my bladder on my spin lock life vest, which is about $600. Like, I've had this for 10 years and I like it. It works. And then I'm deflating it. It's like it's fine. We're fine now, right? And he goes like this with his knife. It's like a Rambo knife. Like, what the hell are you doing? Here's my bladder. Okay, well, he's gone.
I'm glad that's the only bladder he deflated with his knife.
So, anyways, and then I had that helmet on, and we talked, and it was great. But it took and then we get to so there are 3 stations. They told me on the West Coast for air, the U.S. Coast Guard to airlift, right? So I think it's San Francisco, Ventura, and San Diego.
Yeah.
If you're in between, you're out of luck. But so they took me to San Diego, and then we landed, and now they're walking me to the ER. And you got those two guys, and obviously Austin is one of them, and they're about this big because I'm 5'9", and they just look awesome. And I'm just splashing around with my buddies, and I just feel like this middle-aged, overweight moron, you know, going to the ER for like a stupid finger injury. So there's one thing, it's not the end, but that I want to tell you is just as much as you think you know, just don't take a risk. You know, and then you can always learn from the fact, but this could have been worse. And the great thing about this is I've met so many people with finger injuries since then. It's amazing. Like my next door neighbor is missing the pinky. By the way, that's the least finger you want to lose because you want to grab, right? But I was on the boat like last week, and I said I can't really pull as much because my finger. And then the guy does this. He's a brother of a staff commodore here, and he shows his hand and he's missing 3 fingers. And that felt like such a dumbass. You know? I'm sorry, because I still have mine. But you know, the thing is, if we start to move on to the emergency side of it, I was lucky to have Ben. Definitely lucky to have the Coast Guard and to be close to shore. If this had happened, another 100 miles, it would have been a very different story. Because this is when, you know, Christy can witness things that she sees. You know, or anybody who's got a medical background. The worst thing that could happen on the boat is an infection. Okay, so being in a wet environment and dirty environment, if it gets infected, you're done. Okay, so I was very lucky, but so I don't know what to say if it had happened in the middle of the race. So this is when you're like, okay, you're 50 years old. Well, I'm gonna lose a finger. Screw it. I know a basketball player. Well, I don't know, but I've heard of a basketball player who said, "Cut the finger off so I can finish the final or whatever it's called, right? Because otherwise you couldn't play. You decide what you want to do with your limb." There is, I'm sorry guys, there is a knot I want you to know if you have to cut blood circulation. And the riggers here know about it. But because I have a friend who's a very good surgeon, and he told me a long time ago, said, you can cut blood circulation to a limb, it doesn't mean you're gonna lose it. Okay, that's what they do in surgery. And who is the doctor here? Because maybe you guys can confirm. You know, you can cut blood circulation to a limb. That's what you do in surgery because you need to see, otherwise there's blood everywhere. And it's fine. So I can demonstrate the knot here. It's really easy. Somebody set his arm. We're not gonna go tight, but you know, and you know, Mike Blunt here probably knows the knot, but it's kind of. Do you want to stand up so people can see? So it's okay. Don't worry. So you'll go with 2 half hitches, right? So you go to half hitch, right? You guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you would take this leg, okay, and go under and in. Okay, this is called, it's French, it's called a constrictor. Maybe it's a word in...
Constriction.
I don't know, maybe it's a tourniquet. And then you pull, you're done. And then so you take a smaller line, and this is it. This is gonna stop every circulation that you can. So you guys should know that knot, because if anything, it could definitely stop the leak, the blood.
So just to go through that, it's a slow pitch, and then you do.
I'll do it again.
So you have this.
I've got business cards. Not expensive. You need to learn. So you go like that. So this is the knot, you know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And then you take this guy here, and you go over and under. It gets really tight. Like we use, so when you do rigging work and you want to reattach, let's say the cover to the core, you guys are familiar with that? We do that knot, tie it, and then bring it down, and it basically just takes the air out. Kind of thing.
Won't slip, yeah.
So, if that's okay with you, Ben and Austin, unless you have anything, yeah?
I've got one more question for Ben before you let him go, and that is, was there any point in time when you wanted to keep the boat, headed southwest versus east? In other words, head for the Pineapple State and just keep on going? Or
I don't think I took a second to think about it, but then part of me afterwards sailing back, I was like, well, it was almost more stressful heading back.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
To shore in some ways because of everything navigationally around there. But no, I was pretty concerned, Jerome. But I do want to add something about the medical stuff. The training I did was with a company in the UK when I was based in Europe, and they are. If anybody's ever considering doing real offshore stuff, and after this situation with Jerome, I don't think I would ever go offshore without a kit like that. And they have incredible offshore specific kits. They're Medical Support Offshore, MSOS is their company. And they provide like Pelican cases full of completely logged and organized everything. You can do probably a lot of the stuff that you would be able to do inside an ambulance, for example, and they're the guys that support Vendée Globe and everything like that. And they also have a 24-hour-a-day telemedical health type thing where they know exactly what kit you have on board. If you would call in and say, I've got XYZ going, let's say you're out of range, and they would talk you through everything on the boat. They've talked through some crazy stuff. I did 2 of their 5-day trainings in the UK, which are basically EMT trainings. They take you through your entire kit if you want to go there and do it, or they can do it remotely. And so, I don't know. I knew about that company. We were pretty last minute on everything, and we had a kit, and the boat was really well prepared. But, honestly, having a super well prepared kit that's like completely over the top is my biggest takeaway, I would say. If I go offshore at a substantial distance, you want to, like Jerome said, be able to stop a bleed if you know a knot, or if you have actually tourniquets, or they have like hemostatic agents that you can put in there and everything like that. And not to say anything bad about the safety at sea training that I did for the actual qualification to be able to join the Transpac, but it was very superficial level. Having done something that was much more in depth in the past, I know that difference, and I would say 100%, if anybody's thinking about going offshore, there's no better investment you can do in like really going as in depth as you can and having like major protocol for head injuries, bleeding, and how to like assess things and understand and keep it under control. Because like Jerome said, if we had been further out, it would have been a totally different story. And if you don't have some kind of a plan, I think you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
So, and just Josh, and sorry, Austin, actually, it felt to me like Josh was the only one with some medical training. Yeah?
Yep. Yeah, I have basic first aid, but Josh is an EMT, and I have nothing. I'm really just there as an extra set of hands. Once we pick you up, that's not my job. So
right.
Yeah, I don't have any.
But you have one guy in a helicopter, and that's a swimmer as well. So he picks me up, he assesses the situation, bring the person back, and then takes care of them. That's, I was in his
If it's a more serious case, or if we have time, if we're starting from home base, something like that, we'll bring a star medic with us, and they're flight paramedics. So if you have something major, you might get a star medic, but sometimes they just can't come with us. So really, it's mainly about pain management and keeping you alive and getting you to hospital. So we're gonna, if we're doing CPR, we're gonna be pumping on you until we get to the hospital. If we're not declaring anyone dead or anything. So it's always beneficial just to be in the helicopter. We'll be working on you until we get there, but we're not equipped or trained for anything major. It's really just basic EMT stuff, but it is pain management as best we can. I do have a couple of things that I'd before we take off that I'd like to go over, unless you have something else, Jerome, you wanna, or Ben?
No, go ahead. I think they're not kicking you out, so you're good.
Well, I just wrote down a couple of things, and this isn't going to be a conclusive guide or anything to what happens when you call us, but it's kind of like so I wrote down a couple of things. So who makes the decision to go? That's going to be the sector command center with guidance from the flight surgeon, who is a doctor, and they are going to make the decision from what you guys tell us as to whether we go on this case or not, or especially with the time to care taken in mind, just how long do we have to get there? Can we go, say this is 4 a.m, can we wait until 8 a.m. to go when the winds are going to calm down? Can we wait until the seas are going to be less? Can we wait until we have light, or do we have to go right then? So when we get on scene, so basically when we were coming up to you, I remember the sector saying, over from the SATCOM phone, they're telling us that you guys could hear us. And I remember we eventually got VHF comms with you guys. So we're going to make radio comms, and sometimes we'll ask you to do a long count. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that at all, but basically we'll just ask you to count to 10. And we have capabilities on our helicopters to direction find. So basically when you are transmitting, we'll have a little needle that will point to, on our screen in front of the pilots, it'll point to wherever you guys are, and we'll just be able to go straight to you. So basically we'll make radio comms with you, and we'll do a vessel brief, a hoist brief, and then kind of explain what's going to go on. So a vessel brief will be, we will talk to you, and I don't know, Ben, if you remember any of this, but we'll talk to you guys, and we will kind of give you a brief as to what's going to happen, and we'll ask you to secure all non-essential equipment, secure all rigging, everything that's on the decks that could get blown overboard or anything like that. Obviously, when you're in a sailboat that doesn't have a motor, you can't secure your your sail. So that's one of those things that you do what you can do. Don't put yourself in a worse position if
Can I add to that, Jerome?
voluntarily, just because we tell you. So if you can't do something, just tell us hey, we have this on deck. We can't put it under below decks for whatever reason. If you're the one driving and Jerome's injured, then you're gonna have to do everything. So obviously, if you can't do it because you got to drive the boat, then you can't do it. Just tell us. We're gonna have a hoist brief. The hoist brief is really, we're gonna tell you exactly what we're gonna do, how we're gonna recover, how it's gonna all go. If you had, if it was nice calm seas and Jerome, we know that he could walk. If it was nice calm seas, you're on a nice big vessel, we probably wouldn't have even put the sonar down. We probably would have just sent the basket down to the deck of the boat, and Jerome would have just climbed in, and then we would have picked him up, and it would have been one hoist instead of 3. The fewer hoists that we can do, the better. It's always a risk of having getting our hoist cable fouled or having some sort of mishap that can quickly turn pretty dangerous. So the less we can do is better. Which reminded me, I wanted to talk about how, Jerome, you were talking about how you had to get into the water. We're only going to have you jump in the water if we have to. We don't want you to get wet. We don't want Josh to get wet, the swimmer. We don't want anybody to get wet. We want to keep you nice and happy and dry because, hypothermia is a real concern. Not so much, in California, but up in Alaska, we had issues with that. And, but we do have heat on board, so we can shut the door and we can get it nice and warm. I'm pretty sure we did that with you, Jerome. Got it nice and toasty because, you're soaking wet. if we can pick you up, like I was saying earlier, directly from the deck, we're going to. We didn't do that with you, Jerome, because you guys were on a small sailboat that was still under sail. We can't really get that close to you. That's why we put our swimmer in the water kind of far away. And thankfully, you were able to tack all the way over there. I thought for a while that we were going to have to pick him back up and reposition him, the rescue swimmer, because he was so far away from you guys. But eventually I saw what you guys were doing, going against the wind and coming up to get him. Normally we'll put the swimmer upwind of you guys and so that he'll be able to, you'll be going forward and he'll just kind of sit there and come to you guys. But thankfully it worked out because I didn't think it was going to originally when you put Josh in the water.
Excellent,
if you guys don't,
seamanship.
yeah, sorry, what's that?
Excellent seamanship to make that connection.
Jerome, I have a question that pertains.
Yeah, of course.
And so afterwards, do you guys have a full debrief? Have you talked with Jerome about potentially changing, or not changing, but just every time I'm sure you debrief about like how we could do things better? Is that something that dealing with a sailboat, are you gonna potentially have different procedures going forward, knowing that sailboats sometimes can be more maneuverable?
That is, so we debrief as a crew. There's a full debrief that goes up to the command, and any relevant information is disseminated to the pilots and air crew. We know that sailboats are more difficult. It's just like fishing boats that have all the lines and rigging and everything all over them. They're really difficult to hoist to as well, just from this the snag hazards. Sailboats are difficult to get close to because of the wind, and the rotor wash and everything. It's hurricane force wind. I mean, Jerome, I'm sure you remember when you were getting picked up. I mean, it's pretty rough and it's a very very intense rotor wash. I haven't heard anything about from this case specifically if we're going to implement anything different. But I mean, the entire Coast Guard takes every case that happens, and we discuss everything. It goes all the way up to anything that happens that can be benefited from is definitely discussed. Sorry, does that answer your question at all?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So,
yes.
so we got a few minutes because I was told. But yes, Craig first. I'm sorry, Craig was first.
Now, how much time was, you said you had to tack to get back to them the first time?
The what?
You had to tack to get back to the Coast Guard's position on the,
Well, yeah,
At
I
least
mean,
once, and then he
Josh
said
was
a couple
swimming and it
times.
was pretty far away, so.
so there's multiple tacks.
There's, I don't know, a couple of tacks
No,
maybe?
I'm curious, like.
No, not that many.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that.
Not even
But yeah,
that.
it's maybe like 5
Ben,
minutes.
I don't
I'd
think we
say.
tacked that many times.
Yeah.
Right?
He was
It all
just saying
seems
5
longer
minutes.
when you're right there watching it all happen, but maybe it was less than. Maybe it was only for like 3 or 4 minutes, like 3 minutes. But if you can't go and get him, and you think that something bad is going to happen by tacking or turning around or whatever, then just keep sailing. Like we'll see you heading off. We're not just going to wait for you to turn around. We'll just pick him up again. And I mean, this is the type of stuff that we train for. I mean, we have a whole advanced helicopter rescue school. It's up in Oregon, off of Astoria, Oregon, that trains in 20-foot seas. So there's a whole different training technique for hoisting in 15+ foot seas. So yeah, we'll reposition. That's not a big deal.
And by the way, we picked the guy up, we picked Josh up, but then I went back in the water, so I inflated my life vest by hand, so I didn't jump in the water. I inflated it, jumped in the water. Next thing I know, I'm being lifted. I mean, this is amazing, the control that they have over, when it comes down on you and how the guy just puts you in it. And there's some footage, I'll show you if we can, but it was just so easy, it was flawless. It was like, oh my God, and the only thing I remembered is this massive helicopter, and there's no sound, there's no noise. The HUD on this thing is just so quiet, and it's just like,
You just
you
don't
go up.
remember it there. It's super loud. Just don't remember it.
No, I don't know. It was
Yeah, bothering you.
I don't know. To me, it's like those guys just. I didn't feel like I was in the water forever. I was definitely hypothermia.
So
because I was
basically, me and the pilots, we're watching the rescue swimmer. So like we saw you guys jump in, and I'm waiting for a thumbs up. So a thumbs up means that they are ready for pickup, basically. So as soon as I see a ready for pickup, we've already briefed how we're going to recover. The swimmer and the survivor. We already knew that we were going to pick you up in the basket. I had the basket rigged and ready to go. As soon as I saw that thumbs up, I said, I have the ready for pickup. And the pilot said, Roger, begin the hoist. So I say, Roger that, I have target in sight. Basket's going out the door. Basket's going down. So I bring the basket down to about 5 feet off the water, 5 to 10 feet off the water. And then I tell the pilots how to move the helicopter over, because the pilots, they will lose sight of you, because they can't see directly below you, obviously, or below us, obviously. So I tell them to maneuver it all the way over, and I drop the basket right next to you guys, and then Josh is going to put you in, into the basket. So really, all you need to do is just kind of float on your back, and he's gonna swim you over to wherever he needs you, and then I'm gonna bring the basket over to wherever you guys are, and we're gonna meet in the middle. The basket, I'm sure you remember, it's kind of small. Like, it's hard for me to fit in. It's kind of small. So if you're in that, you're gonna have to, bend your knees to be able to fit yourself in there. But it's another one of those things. Like, if you can't fit in a basket, if you have some sort of injury, like if you have a back injury, we're not going to put you in the basket. We're not going to have you jump in the water if you have a back injury. We're going to put you in a litter, and I'm going to hoist you we can hoist you from the water in a litter, but that's not a fun time. You don't want to be strapped into this litter while you're bobbing up and down in the water. Nope, that's scary. So, anyways, yeah, it's we train so much for this that it's all just, it's very quick, it's very fast. Everybody knows exactly what's happening. Everything's pre-briefed, so it shouldn't take very long.
Austin, you're right. It felt so fast.
How much time elapsed? How much time elapsed from the time you started hovering to when you got him in?
I'd say probably 10 to 15 minutes, maybe.
That's amazing.
Because we put Josh down, he got over onto the boat. That and then on the boat was maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and then. Once you get back in the water, we want to pick you up as soon as possible, because when you're in the water, you're really at the mercy of the waves. So, I don't like seeing people swim around down there. But all the rescue swimmers are extremely highly trained. It's one of the most difficult schools to get through in the military. So you're definitely in safe hands with them. They're incredible athletes.
Austin, I did not swim. I was like,
you what?
I did not swim. I went in the water and I was just floating around, and Joe was drag me, okay, get in the basket. You know that movie Silence of the Lambs? Put the lotion in the basket.
They will bring you to where they need you, and they will put you where they need you. I would just try not to panic. You're in good hands. You're going to be fine, especially if you have a life vest on. You're going to be fine. But just kind of float there, and they'll grab you, and they will buddy tow you over to wherever they need you.
So one thing though, which is funny, don't take me wrong on this. So after the ER, my life vest is gone. So I'm going home and what the fuck is my life vest? Because by the time I've got the AIS, the EPIRB, the life vest, the bladder, it's it's $1,000 life vest, right? Which I had for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I get in touch with Austin, what the fuck is the shit? I don't know, maybe just come there and pick it up, and I pick it up, and the bladder is gone, the AIS is gone, the EPIRB is gone, great. And then, so the thing was old, and now it can be replaced, so I bought a new one, and it's, it is the way it is.
Yeah, your life is safe.
Yeah.
Keep your stuff up to date.
We normally keep all of the life vests, and you can come into our other hangar if you guys are ever down in San Diego. You want a tour, you want to come look at the helicopters, whatever. Just let Jerome know, and then we'll you can coordinate with me. We can get you on board. But yeah, we normally keep the life vests. If you have a life vest if you ever get picked up by us and you want to keep the life vest, just make it known. Make it very well known. I need that. I need to keep that, because normally we'll keep it. None of us or not many of us or none of us know how expensive any of that stuff is, because like I don't, you know, when we go flying, I don't buy any of my own stuff, and I probably have thousands of dollars worth of, you know, like my dry suit is probably $1,000, I don't even know. So, but yeah, just you know, we don't have any really like hard and fast rules. So if you,
Also, we've got Lindsay's got a question. She's an amazing sailor here, so I want to make sure we address that.
It used to be in safety at sea that they told you not to touch the basket when it was dropped because of static electricity. Are the baskets different now? Is it, there's still a procedure for safety in terms of static electricity?
yeah, so you absolutely can get shocked if you touch the basket before it touches the water or the deck of your boat or something like that. So I am going to put the basket right where I want it, and I'm going to maneuver the boat around, or the, sorry, not the boat, the helicopter around to put the basket where I want to. If you see it touch something, you can then grab it. But if it hasn't touched anything, don't like reach out and grab it. We have special like hooks that we use when we're training. That's to grab them. It has like a cable with like an alligator clamp on the end, and then it's connected to a stick with a hook on the end, so that they can grab the basket when it's still in the air, so they don't get shocked. But I mean, rescue swimmers, they get shocked all the time when we're hoisting them down. Because their fin will get close to the water and then they'll get shocked up, you know, through that. So if you let it touch something, you won't get shocked. It just don't grab it before it touches something, whether that's the water or whether that's, you know, your vessel.
Would I like to ask a question? Why you got your one pole in a cast?
Because I rode my motorcycle into a wall, and I severely dislocated and sprained and broke my wrist, and I broke my pelvis as well. So I'm in a wheelchair right now as well. So.
Oh, okay. Not
yep.
good.
Yep. I can put some pictures up on the screen if you want to see how bad it is. It's pretty cool. But yeah.
Well,
yeah, so a couple, let me see if I have anything else.
we also we're gonna have to make it. We're gonna have to stop.
No.
Well, I just got one
Okay,
last
go ahead.
parting
Yeah,
thing. So basically, there's 3 things that I always tell people that you want to be able to do. You want to be able to signal for help, which you guys did by your sat phone and your radio. So whether that's a sat phone, radio, an EPIRB, an ELT, something like that, or an InReach, Garmin InReach, something like that. You want to be able to stay alive, so have a life vest, have some means of flotation, bring dry suits or gummy suits with you. You got to be able to stay alive, because it might take us hours and hours and hours to get up there. And then it also really helps to be able to signal once we get there. So having a flare, or having like a single flare, or having multiple like red star shells that you can shoot up in the air. So that once you, remember, we're trying to spot a little head bobbing in the water. So if your boat sinks, you want to be able to signal. So those are my three things that I always tell people. But it was really great to talk to you guys, and thanks for having me.
At this point, Jerome, I'd like to wrap it up. If you've got questions for Jerome, he's going to be here for a while. If you happen to answer them, from my perspective of what we saw tonight, it was fantastic. Austin, Jerome,
thank you guys.
Ben, the whole team, incredible seamanship and coordination to come up with a positive result. You know, Jerome still has the, uses his fingers, but it was incredibly orchestrated, and I think there's a lot of lessons we should learn from this. The outcome could have been much worse. Yeah. Thanks for folks for participating.
Guys,
yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you
guys. Before we get up, there's a couple of people I would like to thank tonight. We've been doing this Friday night speaker series for a couple of years now. We've come out of COVID. There's a new sheriff in town. Chris Hell has been instrumental in putting together a great organization to pull these and other activities into focus. And I'd like to thank Tina Roman for orchestrating the food tonight. Currently, we're going to be doing this as a regular theme on those Friday nights. So thanks very much for the support. Come on back. It's a great program. If you like what you see tonight, come back to South Coast Cruise.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.